Hey, thanks for joining me on my lovely little podcast from my corner of the world to yours. I am really happy that you are tuning in. You downloaded or listened, however you're doing it. I am forever grateful and forever grateful that you're helping me find new talent because it's just you don't really get that opportunity so much. There's so much great stuff out there, and I really like promoting these people who are really trying to really make a difference and really be part of the art scene. It's a really tough thing, obviously, and especially now that we're not terribly far out of the pandemic. It feels like a long time, but we're still, still struggling with trying to get our bearings, and but we're doing well, aren't we? I don't know. I'd like to say that we are. Anyway, today I have a really wonderful new talent. This guy who really he does it on the side, and he plays at a lot of local places here in the Atlanta metro area. His name is Nick Watson. He's a singer-songwriter, and he went to Georgia Tech and really just decided to really explore music and does a great job. And we talk about how tough it is to do something on the side of your main gig. I talk about it all the time. And I really enjoy my day gig for those who know where I'm at. But this is really, really fun to have a creative outlet. You're doing it on your own. And I liken it to, the exercise that I do. Like I'm enjoying running and I like doing this as well. It's just a great creative outlet. For Nick, it's the same kind of thing. He is just a fabulous singer-songwriter. He's done a couple of singles, but he hasn't been out there for a very, very long time. So I hope you enjoy this. He's on the other side of town from me. I'm in Peachtree Corners. It's kind of what this podcast name is after, but we don't so much talk about Peachtree Corners. Although this is a wonderful place with so many talent people, but he's on the other side of town. Marietta, Georgia is close to I-75 when you're most people who pass through America's colon here in Atlanta. That's what I call Atlanta. Uh, really come down I-75, and he's not too far off of there and we make a few local references there. He spent time up the road on 75 in a place called Cartersville, which is way north of here. But great guy. We had a great chat. Really, really enjoy him. If you're in the Atlanta metro area, I know he's going to try to go out there and do some touring and get his name out there. But he's got a good day gig as well. We talk about that. So I hope you enjoy. Good afternoon. How you doing?
Oh, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining me today. It's just a real treat. It's a beautiful day here in the ATL. Where are you at? Are you in the ATL?
I am. I'm just outside the perimeter. I'm in Marietta.
Okay, how long have you been there?
Kind of on and off for about, let's see, probably since 2017. I've moved like a little bit to, at one point I was in Cartersville, another point I was in kind of the Woodstock area, but yeah, this general area now for a good bit.
Yeah, you've been, so that's the western side of the metro Atlanta area. So yeah, Cartersville is a good like what hour and 15 or hour and a half from Atlanta, way up there in the northwest corner of
Yeah,
the state.
it's a good drive outside of the city.
Yeah. Did you grow up here?
No, I actually moved to the Atlanta area right out of high school. I went to Georgia Tech, so I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, okay. So what type of degree did you get over at Georgia Tech? It's usually like engineering of some type.
Yeah, I was a material science engineer. I was not I was in no way associated with music at that time. So
So music was always the side hustle in your education and your upbringing.
yeah, it's the side hustle. It's also the other half of my brain. There's the creative part, and then
Right.
there's the very like analytical problem solving part. So
Yeah, those two must be fighting quite a bit because you're probably great at both. It's like, wow, yeah, they're competing for each other.
yeah, it's balance is very much the art of getting those two halves to get along. So.
Good, good. When did you graduate from Georgia Tech?
That was 2017. I
Yeah,
did it.
good. And do you want to mention your day gig, your actual main job?
Yeah, so I mean, right now I have I'm like a freelance consultant, so that within itself is a very variable line of work, right? Like it can change a lot.
Oh yeah.
I actually really appreciate that because mu music's the same way, like some months there will be like a lot of gigs or shows or people I'm talking to or maybe, working on recording or something like that. And it's nice to be able to have times where it's like, all right, I'm gonna push the gas pedal a little harder on the music things. And then sometimes I need to switch back to doing more hours in the consulting world. So
Yeah, that's got to be tough because it's like, oh, I can't do that gig. The consulting work is really taking up my time here, and I really want to do all these gigs. So it's got to be tough to like say, oh gosh, if I could just like do anything else.
yeah, yeah, and I've thought about doing it. I've talked to friends who are doing the full-time musician thing, and they, a couple of them even cautioned me. They were like, like you have a really good balance. Maybe keep doing what you're doing. There, like when music is, it's your passion, but it's also what you're doing to pay the bills. It can start to kind of like rob the passion out of it. So. There was also just kind of like they're like, hey man, like if you can do less hours at this other thing and
Right.
maybe, even take some of that like money and put it into music, they're like, you might get more out of it. So it's an interesting balance, but I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I got lucky.
Yeah, great to, as they always say, great to have a fallback because that music and anything in these creative arts, it's always really tough. It's just really, and especially in music, it's really really hard to. I mean, even get the music contract and to even get gigs, and that's where you make the money is really live gigs, so people get out there and know who you are.
Yeah, the monetization of music is it's parts of it are a mystery to me. Like for me, it's always just been paying gigs, but there are people who are paid songwriters and they have music and film and TV and all of that. But I haven't ventured into that realm.
Yeah, and to pay consultants because like I haven't figured out how to really even monetize what I'm doing here. It's really tough. It's like I can't pay anybody, and you do get these people who are soliciting to you saying, "Hey, I could really get your numbers up there," and but it's gonna be for a price, and I don't have a payroll, so it's got to be tough as a musician to really try to get there, and you're on Spotify or whatever, but you get like what? A percentage of a penny for every play or whatever it is. So it's really tough.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's not it's not too much though. Um, it's I think at the end of the day, it's like if you're a musician or an artist of any sort, it's nice if you can make a profession out of that. But it's kind of one of those things where like if I never earned any money doing it, I'd still be doing it. It's if you're a writer, you write, whether or not you ever publish anything, it's you're writing.
Yeah. So growing up, what interested you getting into music? Did you take lessons? Did you just pick it up by ear and getting into learning instruments and singing and all of that?
Yeah, I grew up in a really musical household, I guess. My mom was actually a vocal performance major at Belmont, so she was a really, it still is a really talented singer. So I just kind of always had like at least one person in the house that was walking around singing to whatever songs were playing, and um, music was just kind of, I guess, part of the culture I grew up in. When I was pretty young, like 9 years old, I don't think I was forced to learn an instrument, but somehow somehow at the age of 9, I chose to start taking guitar lessons. And it was, I remember it being really frustrating. And I think especially at that age, trying to learn to play an instrument. Um, it's just, before anything sounds good, it sounds bad. It's difficult to learn to play a chord. And so I remember that at some point, it's like, you learn whatever it is, three or four chords. And like my brain kind of put two and two together that like I can play a song with what I'm doing now. And I can even learn some of the songs that I like to listen to and play them on guitar. And when that clicked, when I figured out I could play a song on this instrument, that's kind of when I fell in love with guitar and with music and
Yeah,
um,
it's really that 10,000 hours where you got to get yourself perfected and just keep going and going and going. But it's really tough because you're so heavily judged, and it's really tough. Like, oh gosh, you of course you're going to sing out of tune when you're a kid. You got to practice, practice, practice. But people will just like immediately say, "Oh yeah, you just can't sing. What are you trying to do here?" And it's, you're not born doing that, but we get this impression that people are born just to do this, and it's like you gotta work at it, and it just takes those hours to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's both. I think in the sense that like there are some people who have, whatever you want to call it, like they have the gift or like a gift. Like they're just very without thinking too much about it. They're just, oh, I want to sing along to this, and like boom, they're singing along to a song, and they don't have to worry about their pitch too much or anything. And then there are others that may not have the same amount of just natural talent, but everyone, I think, and you find like the people who are, like the greatest talents, it's like they always have the hours that they've put in. It's like an obsession for them. Like they're always working on their craft.
Yeah, yeah, and you always are, even once you make it. I mean, you're still live performing, and you still have to keep honing it and keep working at it, and that's what gets into your songwriting. So when did you start doing original songwriting?
I think I was 19 or 20. I was primarily just playing guitar for like, you know, a decade or so, and I would come up with my own riffs on guitar and almost like make my own songs that were just all guitar. But it wasn't until I was like maybe 19 or 20 that I actually started writing lyrics and singing along to songs that I was writing.
Yeah, yeah. Who inspired you growing up as far as performance and singer-songwriters?
I remember when I was really little, I listened to a bunch of John Denver. Like that was something that was always like playing around the house, and I liked his music a lot. And then I was pretty heavily influenced by Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash. And then that kind of grew into, or I sort of like deviated from listening to more like singer-songwriters, and I got really into like rock and heavier music, and so started listening to like, I was mostly into guitar, right? So like my idea of like, what do I want to be when I grow up? It was like I just want to shred. So I was listening to like Metallica and
Oh
Megadeth
my
and
gosh.
Slayer and like all of those metal bands, and then got into some more like progressive stuff. And at some point along the way, I lost some of my angst and picked up an acoustic guitar again, and was like, there's something about this that I like. So
What was that feeling like when you went electric, just like Dylan did? You just all of a sudden did you go into a guitar world and say, "Yeah, I'm getting that. I want to shred for a few years here."
I mean, I still play electric. I really do like. I love doing lead work when I can. I'm not a very good lead guitar player, but I still like to. Sometimes I'll show up to like songwriting workshops and bring a electric and let different people kind of play around on it, and it's definitely fun to blend in the electric into more like acoustic songwriter songs. But I'm definitely not like, um, like trying to get my chops back up with like what I would call shredding, like metal guitar and all of that.
Yeah, totally okay. Probably thousands, if not millions, probably had their Metallica phase for sure in this business. So
I, s- I
yeah,
still I still listen to that kind of music when I'm in that like, I don't know, like if I go to the gym or something, like I'll be
yeah.
listening to metal, but that's pretty much it. Like as soon as I leave the
Well, that
gym, I'm
gets you
like,
pumped
I don't
up.
need yeah, like, wait. I have to turn it off because I'm like, all right, I'm done being in that mode. Like where's something a little more soothing.
Yeah, it's great for a workout, but then it could also make you kind of anxious too if you're playing something like that. I always find that kind of music like, yeah, it's great to pump up. I go for runs. It's good for that, but like anything else, it's kind of produces some anxiety too in a way. It's just like really harsh.
Yeah, yeah. It just music is a way of impacting my emotional and mental state. So sometimes I have to be mindful of like what am I listening to. if you're already sad, it may not be the best idea to listen to like really depressing music. If you're trying to cheer up, it might delay that process.
That is for sure. Did you listen to a lot when you were at Georgia Tech, and were you able to get out there and do some performing when you were at Georgia Tech?
Yeah, yeah. So my time at Tech, like I mean, I always had like a guitar in my, my dorm room or bedroom or wherever, and I would still play, and occasionally a song would just like accidentally happen. I was not intentionally writing songs. It was more like I'd be noodling around on guitar, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh, this is a song. Um, but at one point, I think maybe I was like 21 or something like that. I went and played the open mic at Eddie's Attic and played
Oh,
a few like original songs there. And then shortly after I got out of school, I actually had my first experience like working with a producer and recorded uh, three different songs, and they're actually still like floating around out there. But they were, yeah, I kind of started getting familiar with the process of like what is it like to have someone else produce a song that I've written, because that always gives it its own like trajectory, you know? Like I can write a song and be like, this is how it feels to me. And then they're just depending on who you're working with as a producer, they might have a totally different vision, which can be a really good thing. It can also be like a really bad thing, you know? It's like I think a good producer is someone you work with, and it's like, in a way, they've kind of made the song something like new or enhanced, but in no way like taken away from, like, it still feels like your song is the artist.
mm, mm. That's very insightful. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And going through that. So getting into recording, when did you start doing that?
I guess the first time I ever recorded anything was like other than an iPhone recording was mm, I was maybe 23, 24. Those songs got put out in 2019. So that was yeah, like 5 years ago. And I probably recorded them like maybe 6 years ago. And I'm 30. So yeah, I was 25, something like that.
Yeah.
When those songs got recorded. And it wasn't even in a studio. The guy I was working with, he was like, "Hey man, like for your kind of," he's like, "if you want to save some money for your kind of music," he's like, "we can just use like a little home recording setup." And so we did that, like he had acoustic panels and treatment and some good mics and a good, like he even had some like really solid recording equipment in his home. And so we just went that route, and it actually sounded really good.
Yeah, and especially these days, gosh, it's more portable. You could pretty much record anywhere these days. And it's just getting better and better as far as that goes. And then, AI is getting involved too, which could probably help you with actually writing lyrics, I'm sure, and then probably actually in the studio too. So I'm sure that's another tool. We hope it just remains as a tool and doesn't like take us over.
I don't know if it could ever take away like pure creativity. I mean, I think uh, yeah, I have my thoughts about like what music really is, even at its like
Yeah.
uh, deepest level, and I don't think there's things there that AI uh, can possibly like cooperate with. So I don't think it'll ever take away um, like the human aspect of artistry, which is I think what makes art art. That like human aspect of it. It's what draws us into it. Is it's something human. It's almost when the humanity is taken out of art, it becomes like uncanny and weird and uh, unpleasant for me at least.
Yeah, yeah. It's again, I think it could be a great tool as far as
Yeah, yeah.
sound quality, all that. If you want to even bring in like you don't have to hire an orchestra if you want to have strings in your music or anything like that. I would imagine you can get programs like that and work with it to provide more texture. But yeah, and then that's pretty big probably at Georgia Tech. They probably a lot of people studying AI, I'm sure. And it's probably
Yeah, there's some smart computer science guys and gals at Tech for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie's
I,
Attic is a wonderful, wonderful venue.
it's a
That's
good room.
here in Decatur, Georgia, which is east of the Atlanta area. It's a nice little place. Indigo Girls work themselves out there quite a bit, and some other big names have come in there and played. I've even covered some people who've come in there. So yeah, it's a great place to kind of cut the teeth and get some experience.
Yeah, the guy who was like John Mayer, I think, is one of the big names who like came out of
Mm.
Eddie's attic. Like, there's a plaque in there somewhere with his name on it. So at least I
Yeah.
think there.
How
Um,
how do you like playing in venues like that? Do you get a lot of good response and just being in that intimate kind of a crowd?
yeah, that's my preferred. So I can play guitar, I can sing, um, but my like when I think of like what musically speaking, I classify myself as a songwriter. Like if someone told me tomorrow you could never play guitar again, I'd be sad, but I'd be like, okay, well, like, I'll just choose a different instrument or maybe no instrument, but I'm still going to be a songwriter. So those listening room type environments, I mean, are great, and I think they're in the Atlanta area. There's like not a ton of them, but I do think when you find them, there's something special about it. Like some of them even have like kind of rules more or less that like I'm not like a big rules person, but the idea is like if you're there, it's not to be like catching up with friends and talking loudly and like there's a million other places you can go and grab drinks with your buddies, but there's not
Hmm.
so many places where you can go and hear songwriters performing original music. And when you find rooms where people are actually tuned in to what you're doing and they're listening intently, it's special, like it's in the same way that it's like uh, it's really cool to hear another musician um, play some of their own like original work. It's also really nice to be on the other end of that and be the person who's getting to provide the music for others.
Yeah, venues like that are really important because like yeah, if you're playing like bars or whatever, you just become background music. And that has gotta not be very satisfying at all. I mean, maybe if people give you some coin or whatever, you're getting paid, but still, it's like that's gotta feel far less satisfying than going into a place like Eddie's Attic.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and I know that can mean anything. It's almost like a nothing statement, but like, that has its value too. Like music can help create an atmosphere, and
Sure.
so if people, want a certain atmosphere and they want live music, and I can do that too. I can be the guy who just has some live
Yeah.
music going while you do an art gallery event or at a coffee shop or at a bar. But I was recently I was at like a little place here in Marietta called Third Door, and they have some really good live music acts come through. But it was a Friday night or a Saturday night or something, so most people are like, they're there catching up. It's kind of loud. It's packed with people, and there's this musician, and he's there doing covers. And then I noticed he was starting to do some original work,
Huh.
and I was really paying attention to what he was doing. And at some point after his set, I like stopped at the bar and was talking to him, and he goes, "Are you the?" He's like, he was he was like a he. It had come up that I was also a musician. He goes, "Were you the guy sitting in like the back right corner of the room?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, that was me." He's like, "I immediately could tell you were a musician," and I was like, "How?" And he goes, "Because you were one of the only people really listening." And
Uh-huh.
so it
So
was
they could say,
interesting.
yeah.
Like, I think as musicians, we pick up on it too when like someone's actually listening.
Yeah,
And it's
makes a difference. But sound very flexible too. It's like, look, if I need, I'm getting the experience, I'm going, whether I'm background or not. That is very true. But yeah, you could tell who's paying attention, who isn't, and it's all well and good. At least you're getting out there. The name's getting out there. That's what's important. Not just putting yourself on Spotify.
right, yeah, and I mean, there's a communal aspect to music too, right? Like a lot of times people want to hear what they know, and that means you're going to be doing cover work, and there's
Sure.
nothing wrong with that. Like people want to be able to sing along, so you got to play the tunes people know.
Well, that's the issue with legacy artists too. It's like you gotta play the hits, and they've played a certain huge hit like 70,000 times. And it's like I'm sure and they love their song and everything, but yeah, it's like it's a must. And yeah, people like the tried, true, and familiar.
Yeah, it's music's interesting. You know, I can only imagine what it would be like to be an artist who's like put out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs, but there's still that one song you got to play at every gig because everyone loves it.
So true. So true. And with your own catalog, now everything you've recorded is just singles. They've all been one-offs that you put out there.
Yeah, so I have three that were kind of done in 2019 with a friend. I have another single that's coming out in a couple weeks, and I actually recorded it here at home in like a little home recording setup I have. So I mean, it's like just guitar and vocals, and it's really more of like a live demo kind of feel.
Hmm.
Uh, but there's something about it that I it's kind of where I am artistically and creatively right now. Like even a lot of the musicians I listen to are like it's just guitar and vocals and like maybe another instrument or two, and a lot of it's live takes. They're not these super like overdubbed, polished end products, and so that's kind of what I've been working on recently is stuff that's very I don't know, almost has like a 70s songwriter feel to it, like very stripped down and kind of just done, you know, almost like you're listening to a live performance or something like that.
Nice.
I
Nice.
just, yeah, I
Have
like
you,
to feel it.
yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, have you thought about like expanding and having a full band, or is that something that just wouldn't really interest you?
No, I've thought about it. And recently, actually, a friend of mine, his name's John Lorenz. He goes by Sweetie Pie as his artist name. He and I have gotten into doing a couple of duo gigs together. And
Yeah.
even just like a duo is really fun. And like, we've kind of joked around about like, yeah, like if we could find a third, like someone to do bass or percussion, like that would be awesome. And at that point, it's a band, right?
Right. A trio could be a band.
Yeah. I mean, I guess even a duo could be a band, right? Like look at like the
Yeah.
White Stripes or the
True.
Black
Yeah.
Keys. Um, but yeah, I love getting the opportunity to perform and like even just jam and create with other musicians, and I don't get to do it very much. Um, but when I do, it's a really good experience.
Yeah, when you get a good partner, I think that that's really important, and you could bounce ideas off of each other. You just got to have that, simpatico going. And some of the best duos have been out there, and then they always have their fights and everything like that, and then they make up or whatever and go back and forth. But that's how it is. The creative process is just that is kind of how it works.
Yeah, there's something about when you're working with someone else, like my friend John, like one time I heard him, he was playing one of my songs like that I had written, and like he had the chords and the lyrics in front of him, but just hearing another person perform one of your own songs, there's this like it's like, oh man, like I would have never thought of playing it that way or performing it that way. And it takes on a life of its own. And for me, it's almost like I'd rather hear, other people and like more talented people like play my songs. There's something like humbling and exciting about that.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure that's gonna feel great. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
it's really cool.
Yeah. Now, are you getting your material copyrighted? How does the publishing work if you're going to build up a catalog like that?
I don't know. Like I think when I've read and heard different things about copyright laws, like like I've heard everything from like, well, you should, if you like mail a song to yourself, it's copyrighted because it was postmarked, and then people are like, no, that's garbage. Like as soon as you create something, it's like automatically yours. But I don't, I do know anything that I've gone through the process of distributing. So if it's, ends up making it onto like streaming platforms, um, there's a copyright involved in that process, but I don't have to like directly work with the copyright office.
Okay. And you're all over Spotify and Pandora and all of those.
Yeah, I have so my the three songs I did back in 2019 are not currently on Spotify. I need to like relist them, but they're definitely on all the other platforms, and anything new that I'm releasing will be on Spotify as well.
Good, good. Yeah, I guess that kind of gives you that somewhat quote unquote automatic copyright. So now you did the single called Weigh Me Down. Is that one
Hmm.
of yours?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
That's good. Yeah, I've come across some, and I'm not even sure where I've seen this. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I so when I use like a distributor, they like push it out to everything. You
Yeah.
you know, like whatever, like even platforms like I've never even heard of. I'm like, I don't know who listens to music on this, but it's there. You can find my music there. So it's and it's weird how algorithms work. Like I was having like someone was mentioning me on a phone call with like their brother or like brother-in-law or something like that. And then like the next day, all of a sudden they were like some of my songs started popping up on YouTube as suggestions. And so like it's weird how like devices are listening. And so yeah, my songs are out there and sometimes people hear them. But
Yeah. Are you really into keeping up with like streaming numbers and trying to figure all that out?
no, that's a big weakness for me. Like to be honest, if I the probably the area I need to brush up on most is the business aspect of being an artist, you know, like whether it's promoting myself or even just like the art of like the right way to release a song or the right way to release an album or an EP. Like there's a roadmap for how to do that. You know, there's like certain points where it's like, okay, like if you want to submit a song to a playlist, it needs to be on the platform but unreleased for like at least a week or two to like give curators time to, and it's like I don't know all of those dates and all the exact like right ways to do it. I'm kind of learning as I go. So it's that's kind of an area too where it's like if I ever could like meet someone who like that's what they wanted to do is to like work as like kind of a like help artists with like promoting their artwork or something, like that's probably someone I would be, you know, interested to work with even for a price just because I realize I have very like little knowledge and experience of that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Weigh Me Down's a great song. You got some horns on there. How did who contributed to that section?
So I don't remember the artist's name. I never even got to meet him, right? Because like I was working with a producer, and like you know the way that would work is I would go into his studio, which is his like home recording setup at that time. Like he's a guy named Mike O'Brien, and he you know he does work with other artists out of studios and stuff. But he was just like, look, man, for like guitar and vocals, like he's like I can capture that at my house, and we can do you know the rest of the production elsewhere. And so he had you know me playing guitar and singing and had like you know everything already tracked out, and then he had a like a local artist he knew come in and do the horn part. And that's what I mean by like working with a producer can really take a song in a really cool and different direction, because I would have never thought this song needs horns,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
that's the magic in it.
And he wasn't going to just like you know do something that I didn't like, but he was like, hey, I had a friend record a horn section or a horn piece over this song, like what do you think? And I was like, I love it. Like you know you
Yeah.
can't get rid of it, that's great.
You wouldn't have thought of that. That's really cool. And you seem to be, really into folk. I'm getting images of Cat Stevens and people like that. Really could feel it in that track and just wonderful lyrics and that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think the question of genre comes up a lot, and the I think I get usually thrown in with like folk and country folk, because my songs are definitely not like more contemporary country. But they do kind of remind people of some of the like older country artists, like maybe you know Willie Nelson or Townes Van Zandt or something like that, like people who are country artists but not in the um, you know modern country music genre.
Yeah. Yeah. Some very deep songs there. I like Tree's song. That's got some hidden deep meanings there as well.
Yeah, that song's interesting because it came out of a prompt, right? Like I I did a challenge with a friend, with my friend John, and he was like, "Hey, try writing a song every day for 21 days just to get yourself
Cool.
into the habit of consistently songwriting." And that ended up running into 70 something days of writing a song every day. And when you're doing that much songwriting, um, you at some point like you kind of just need material, and it gets boring always, you know, being introspective and like, well, how do I feel today? And I'm gonna write a
Yeah.
song about like, you know, my emotions, or like, you know, that can get really, for me at least, that can get old. And so there was this prompt I got out of a book. um, written by Jeff Tweedy, the guy from Wilco. He has
Hmm.
a songwriting book, and the prompt is like, try writing a song from the perspective of an inanimate object. And I was like driving down the road, and there's this tree, and I was like, what would it be like to, like be a tree? And what's funny is when you write from the perspective of someone or something else, I think what I ended up writing in that song, it's like I interestingly enough get more glimpses into who I actually am or how I actually think than I
Hmm.
would if I were focusing on myself. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a so that's an interesting song. It came from a really cool exercise.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. What if the tree knew and is wondering where all these cars are going? Like, I wonder where everybody's going. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
that even if I'm running along the side of the road. What's going on in everybody's lives?
yeah. I don't know. I wondered the same thing, I guess, A lot of people in Atlanta traffic and they're all doing something and going somewhere.
Especially here.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. The whole ATL Atlanta Metro is quite full and it keeps expanding. It's exploding.
Yeah. So it is interesting, like when you see people like airports are that way for me. Like when I'm in a place where it's like you just have all these people and they're all going somewhere and doing something. It's like there's part of me that it's like, they're all their own like little worlds, like they all have their own story and place they're going and thing they're doing and they all have
Mhm.
their own like group of loved ones and families and I don't know, I get kind of like I like those sort of environments, where it's for a moment I can step out of the movie that I'm playing in my head where I'm the main actor and kind of just realize I'm a part of other people's lives. It's always
So
nice.
true. Do you travel a lot for your job?
Um, I mean, I travel a fair amount. I wouldn't say it's for my job. I just got back from a trip to Boston, and I had been invited to. There was like a retreat there that a friend of mine was a part of, and they were doing some like live music, and they invited me to go up and like play some of my songs. So like occasionally I do end up traveling for music, but I haven't put anything together that's like a tour or anything like that. My friend John, he keeps pushing me in that direction. He's like, "Hey man, like you should look into like putting a circuit together of, at least places in the southeast where you can travel around and play at some venues where um, like go up to Nashville, go to, South Carolina, go through
Hmm.
Florida, find some different pockets to regularly stop into and play at some songwriter venues.
Yeah, so it's been basically you've been performing here in the Atlanta metro area. So I mean, any various besides Eddie's Attic, what? And then there's another place called the Third Door you've been at. Any other
Yeah,
venues?
the third door is great. Another good venue in this area is like Mad Life does a lot of shows for like songwriters in the round events and undiscovered artist events, and they have like an open mic there. So they do a really good job of, they have their own thing they do too, where there's like different artists come in and book shows and like tribute bands are there, but they also have a really good amount of um, exposure they give to like local artists. And there's places like Smith's Old Bar.
Mhm.
There Eddie Owen has a new spot, the Red Clay Theater. I haven't been there in a long time, but there are places in the Atlanta area that are very focused on like songwriters, original music, and cultivating an Atlanta music scene.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. There's been a whole lot of talent that has come out of Atlanta and then all the way over to Athens. Georgia's just
Mhm.
chock full of it. Definitely carrying on the tradition. Definitely.
Athens,
Uh,
is great.
yeah.
North Georgia is good. Like up in the mountains, there's some really
Oh
cool
yeah.
spots to play. So.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Another track, Summer Lullaby, I really enjoyed that. I like the sound effects. Was that an idea that the producer came up with as well?
No, so Summer Lullaby is like that. Like I've kind of considered the idea of putting that one out on streaming platforms because it's not produced. Like that is actually an iPhone recording.
Oh wow.
I have no idea why it sounds as good as it does because I guess I got lucky, and the crickets in the background are like that's actually me this past summer in Georgia, sitting outside playing guitar, working on writing a song, and I wrote that song that night and had my phone in front of me and just hit record, and it was one of those things where like sometimes you just capture some magic, for lack of a better word, you know, like
Yeah.
it was one take. I wrote it, you know, I recorded it minutes after finishing writing it. And so yeah, it's a really cool, um, very, you know, very lo-fi sounding, not professionally recorded or produced, but still like a really sincere song.
Yeah, it totally captures it. You know, and I keep coming back to this. I spoke with the author of a Bruce Springsteen story about how he put together an album that was totally stripped down called Nebraska, and lightning was caught in a bottle. He did here was
Yeah,
a big star, and he
I
just
have
recorded on this amateur stuff.
yeah, I have sitting right next to me a and pick it up and show it to the camera.
Yeah,
Recently,
yeah,
I
for those who are watching.
recently I bought one of these. This is a like Tascam
There
four
you
track
go.
cassette recorder, and I think it was a device very similar to this one that Nebraska was recorded on. So like sometimes it's nice to use like, you know, older equipment that's analog and you don't have a giant screen in front of you, and just kind of like what can I capture with a guitar and a few mics, you know?
Yeah, the task that's really cool. I love that vintage equipment, you know, the stuff that I wish I could have gotten my hands on. I was telling the author Warren, I was telling him, I was like, yeah, but that T-Act, that was a lot of money. That was $800. You know, that was a lot to me in 1982. And he's like, it sounds like crap, but you know, we they caught the magic right there on the first runs there. And Bruce himself was walking around with the cassette in his pocket.
That's yeah, that's really cool. I would have what I would give to be able to have been like a fly on the wall while they were recording and capturing all the Nebraska songs. It would have been, I mean, even just to see like how they did it, because it doesn't sound like it came recorded on a cassette.
Yeah.
Whatever they did in post to like master it and like, you know, it sounds really good. And I even heard some stories about that album. Like there were engineers and producers who were like trying to get him to like re-record in a studio, and they'd
Right.
re-record songs in a studio, and he'd be like, "No, I like the way the cassette sounds more. Like, you
Yeah.
know, this is better." And so they're like, "All right, fine, we'll go with that one then." That's
Yeah, yeah. And I was talking with Warren about this, and he was like saying, yeah, but I don't have really great audio equipment. I was like, yeah, this sounds really professional. He's like, no, trust me, it sounds like crap. It's just the songwriting craft and the way he plays guitar and the stories. That's what makes it so wonderful. Audio wise, yeah. But like, you know, who's got like huge systems to really hear the tape hiss? I can't hear it.
but I think there's an aspect to um you know, yeah, there's an art to producing a song and coming up with this piece that's just super dynamic and has a bunch of different, you know, like the sonic range is really full. Like there's, you know, like low basses and high, you know, sounds from whatever instruments, you know, like there is something to getting all that to fit together and be cohesive, that is its own art. So I don't want to discredit that, but like as a
Yeah.
songwriter, there's something so like beautiful about just having like maybe one instrument and vocals, and you come up with something that really like it draws people in, because what's drawing people in is the song, you know.
Right.
It means what you've done is you've created a really good song.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the pressure like Nebraska. It doesn't have that pressure of being in the studio and trying to be perfect. There's just something really nice about the organic feel of it. And it's so true. Lightning was captured in a bottle once. And I think you got that with your track Summer Lullaby. It's just like it sounds professional to me. I mean, it's good, you know, on its own. It doesn't need any more polish. It doesn't need, you know, a bevy of producers.
Yeah, I should probably put that one out there on somewhere other than just like Instagram and SoundCloud.
Yeah, it's a little work. And then are you into doing music videos yet, or is that on your radar?
Recently it became a thing I do because someone actually invited me out to their place. They're starting a YouTube channel that it kind of similar to like Western AF, but they want it to be mostly for Georgia or like Georgia adjacent songwriters. And so they're starting up their own YouTube channel, and they're like, "Hey, would you want to come out and play and record some songs?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Free material and videos is great." So that was I think a 4 song like little mini set that I did, and they had some cameras and like really good mics and equipment. And hopefully those videos will be coming out in the next like few weeks or month or so. And I think I can even take the audio from that session and like kind of release it as like a little live, set of recordings.
Live in concert, yeah. Everybody should do that. That's really cool. It's amazing what you can do and just keep taking things and re-releasing them and reworking them. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely something I intend to do. Like, I'd love it if I had songs that within the catalog, like you can hear a demo version, you can hear a live version, you can hear the studio album version. There's nothing wrong with, like having multiple versions of the same song out there because
Oh,
they're,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. So are you getting together to get an EP out there, full album out there? Is that your goal?
So what I'm working on right now, like I have one single that's like in the queue. It'll be as soon as the distributors are done inspecting it, it'll be out there on streaming platforms. I have one single coming out, and it's the first of what I would like to do, like 5 or 6 songs that are kind of this um, live demo feel, and they have like an older, kind of like more vintage tone to them. Like I actually used the Tascam to add some of that like tape saturation and warmth and like a little bit of hiss in there, but like not too much. And um, so those are going to come out as a collection of like 5 or 6 singles. Like I'm just going to release them one at a time. And the idea is that shortly after that to work more on a full 10 or 12 song studio album.
Cool.
But it's like if I got like a folder on Google Drive of all the songs that I've written, and there's well over 100 songs, and so like, and I'm still writing. So there's this issue where like you have older songs where you're like, oh yeah, like maybe it'd be nice to like record that one and get it more polished and have it in a format where people can really listen to it and enjoy it. But then at the same time, it's like you come up with this new song and you're like, no, this is the one that I want to that I want to track and get out there. So when you're constantly creating new material, there's a balance to carving out new stuff and also taking time to look back over a body of work and be like, what are the songs here that I would really want to like put the finishing touches on and maybe like record and actually put out there on an album.
Hmm.
So that's like a whole another aspect to the songwriter uh, path or gig or lifestyle that's some people are really great at that, and other people are just kind of like, I tend to be more like this where it's like I always want something new, like I love creating more stuff. So but sometimes
Excellent.
you gotta like pump the brakes and be like, all right, there's like 50 half-naked songs here. Like let's, finish dressing them up and getting them to a point where we can send them out into the world. So
Excellent. Sounds like you got a good plan for sure. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by. It's fantastic. Thank you for joining me and talking with me about your music. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
thank you so much for having me, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. Take care and best wishes. And I hope to see you out there one day. Maybe I'll hit Eddie's attic one night when you're there.
Likewise. All right, thank you.
And I hope you enjoyed our chat. It was very, very lovely. And just stick with me. I got a lot of great guests coming up through the spring and summer of 2024 as we record this. So I'm very happy that you stuck through me this long and enjoyed our chat. Have a good one.